This episode is brought to you by Accenture. When your advertising operations fall out of sync, everything else follows. Spotify and Accenture are working together to reinvent the rhythm of ad sales, using automation, analytics, and smarter workflows to simplify campaign delivery and access better data across the business. The result? Less time spent on operations, more time connecting brands with the moments and fandoms that matter most. Learn more at accenture.com/Spotify.
When you need to build up your team to handle the growing chaos at work, use Indeed Sponsored Jobs. It gives your job post the boost it needs to be seen and helps reach people with the right skills, certifications, and more. Spend less time searching and more time actually interviewing candidates who check all your boxes. Listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. That's Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Need a hiring hero? This is a job for Indeed Sponsored Jobs.
Welcome to Storylines Live, the only podcast that explores the power and the meaning of the most important story in business. The one that answers why somebody would buy from you, work for you, invest in you, or partner with you. This is the story that defines the very character and nature of an organization. At Vendilli, we call it your capital S story. In each episode of Storylines Live, we feature business leaders, marketing experts, and others who have great perspective on how to share your capital S story in a way that produces better results. In this episode, we're honored to have Justin Starbird of the Aebli Group, also known as TAG. Like me, Justin is an agency principal, and his agency is, it's a cool agency. We're going to talk about it quite a bit. I just want to cover your background a little bit here, Justin. The focus of TAG is on transforming companies by systematizing their business development. We're going to talk today in this episode about a special category of businesses that TAG works with, and that's startups. Justin's expertise is in creating scalable and repeatable sales platforms, something that he's honed through his own experience in new business development and marketing communications. Before forming the Aebli Group, he was vice president of strategic sales at 48 Solutions, where he collaborated with Fortune 500 companies to foster tailored solutions in logistics, enhancing supply chain efficiencies. Now, these experiences, as well as other opportunities he's had throughout his career, and we're going to talk about that story, have shaped his ethos, which is centered on innovation and the power of strategic, data-driven marketing. Wow, Justin, marketing is not just foo-foo, it's data, right?
Absolutely, man. You got to look at what's out there and what's resonating before you can make real decisions.
Yeah, that's for sure. Well, welcome to Storylines Live. Anything that I missed in your introduction that you feel our audience would benefit from knowing about you?
I don't know. That's a lot to live up to. Just short thing. So I appreciate the kind words. You know, I've been blessed to have a lot of great opportunities throughout my career and work with wonderful people and wonderful clients. So no, I think you got it all.
Oh, that's great, man. Well, you know, one of the reasons that I mentioned that we want to have you on is because of your focus on startups. And you know, in our experience at Vendilli and at my previous firm, WordRight, we've worked with a lot of startups over the years. They are unique animals. And a big part of that, of course, is where they're at and the evolution cycle versus more of an established organization. And, you know, we've had the opportunity to work with some very large companies too in our agency experience. And we really want to dig into what it looks like to shape the story of an organization that's just basically being born or being shaped in its early stages. Now, you know, as I opened the episode, as I always do, I gave the audience my own take on what storytelling is. And of course, at Vendilli, we have our own trademark process, story crafting, and I wrote a book about it, et cetera, et cetera. But we always ask our guests, Justin, of those 4 questions that I laid out at the top of the episode. Why would somebody buy from you, work for you, invest in you, or partner with you? Where you're at in your own evolution right now, which of those is most important for you?
For us personally as an agency,
Yes.
why would they partner with us is probably uh, most important to me, because generally speaking, we look at our clients as partners, especially on the startup side, because they are starving for help. They are desperate to get their story out. Often, as you know, they are solving problems in the world that most people don't even know exist.
Exactly.
And what is so difficult for them is to work on the technology, figure out how to actually solve that problem, because especially with startups, a lot of times they may still be working on a thesis. They may have a prototype. They may have, maybe a little bit more, but often the reason that you've never heard of them is because they haven't totally figured it out yet. And so we look at that as a partnership opportunity, because to your point about, working with some of those larger brands or larger companies, that's how I built the business. And, we turned 12 in August. And for 10 years, we only worked with established companies to help them grow, scale, and sell. And so this pivot to working with startups is so fascinating to me, because they are so into the business, which, a lot of the established companies wish they could still be in business, right? So now our job is to build those foundational assets to create a community around this solution, and then go through this, fundraising stage or raising capital stage, and then partner with them on the after, right? To grow and scale and then potentially exit. So I'd say of those four questions, certainly partnership is most important to me.
Wow, that's great. That's a great answer. Congratulations, by the way, on your upcoming 12-year anniversary. That is very, very cool.
Thank you very much.
Yeah,
A labor of love, as you know.
Oh yes, I've been through that a few times, and it can be a painful labor of love, but it's still a labor of love. Okay, so for the first 10 years, Justin, the focus was on more established organizations, and roughly in the last 2 years, as you describe it, you folks have started to focus, in addition to your other clients, on startups.
Yeah.
Share with our audience a little bit. What was it? Was there an aha moment or something that led you and the team to say, you know what, we want to work with these kinds of companies?
I wish it was something that clear. It sort of fell in our lap, and then it was an opportunity that we just latched onto. So, speaking of partnerships, again, I go back to our ethos and thinking through. Life has been hard the last 2 years. Life has been hard personally. Life has been hard from a business standpoint for a lot of folks. We've had, in my career and like yours, there are ebbs and flows. There's peaks and valleys, bear markets, bull markets.
Yes.
This is a little bit unique the last 2 years, because a lot of these things have converged all at once. And generally speaking, a lot of the clients that we were working with, medtech, transportation logistics, regulated industries, were relatively immune from political cycles, from economic cycles, because they were, 3-5 years out. And so funding was through grants or through, defense contracts or through, innovation opportunities, incubators, accelerators, those sorts of things. So that they were, or long sales cycles anyway, right? Like medtech,
Yes.
You have, they would wish it was 6 months. Sometimes it's 6 years. So,
Yes.
So relatively immune from ebbs and flows because of who they're selling to. And so what changed though was, the introduction of tariffs and political stuff getting really involved in day-to-day operations of a lot of different businesses. So short story long, one of our clients we have been embedded with for a number of years. They were an established startup, if that makes sense.
Yes.
They were being, angel funded for a long-term period to productize what they were doing. So we were that engine. Well, as VC money and equity money dried up in that space for hard tech, they had to, in order to survive, had to look elsewhere. Somebody from their board had made a suggestion about crowdfunding and using equity crowdfunding as an opportunity to to meet that gap. And because we are embedded with them, Lauren Damon on our team is basically their CMO and has been for years, and our team runs social and those things. That was something we weren't aware of. So we actually brought in a consultant agency. So at first blush, I was like, oh man, we're bringing in a competitor. We're going to be rooted out. And that wasn't the case. The consultants were incredible, and they are actually still part of the overall strategy.
Wow.
And what they did was created an opportunity to take the audience and the community that we built around this solution, which is electrifying heavy machinery. They've figured out a way to replace hydraulics in just about every application.
Wow.
Without using oil. So it's a belt mechanism that takes up the same cavity. So again, I go on here to give context because we had to execute on the strategy. The consultant doesn't hit send. The consultant doesn't, know the brand voice. So everything still ran through us. So we did that and had a lot of success right out of the gate because we had built a community around this product, around this technology, around these founders. Mm-hmm. Well, we started to, kind of dig into some of the technical elements of things. As a good agency, you're trying to push deeper and wider and solve problems for your client.
Exactly.
And found a gap between the WeFunder platform and our CRM. So we built it, and it took notice of the platform. And WeFunder called us and said, "Hey, who are you guys?" We said, "Well, hey, we're different than the consultant that you referred to this deal, but we'd love to learn more." So over the course of a couple months, delivered a lot more of those API plugins and technical stuff, and then turned into sharing how we had built the community first in order to have success. So I share all that context because that gave us a couple of at-bats, which we then did really well with. And WeFunder then reached out again and said, "Hey, would you mind partnering with us and take different deals than what the consultant is?" So we're not competitors. We're working on different elements. And in fact, we actually work together on a couple of different projects. So that, going back to the question at the top about partnership and what's most important, you never, like you and I mean, this was often when we talked offline, before the show, you don't have other agencies on. And now we're known and becoming even more known for working well with others and helping amplify where there might be gaps. So all of that to say, that gave us a seat at the table. And WeFunder continues to send us, opportunities to help their clients and help folks on the platform raise more money. And we do it generally, in robotics, hard tech, and things that you can touch. So in about 18 months, we went from 100% B2B agency to 50-50. And it's been a stark contrast in terms of deal flow and those things, but in a good way, because the storytelling and building a community is similar. It's just a slightly different lens. Instead of trying to acquire new customers, we're trying to acquire new investors who then could become customers, or as Woody Shulman says, investomers, right? And now you have this community of people that are quite literally invested in your success, and they have an opportunity to make introductions to other investors, to potential customers, to potential employees. And so it really fits with who we are and who I always hoped we would grow up to be.
Wow. I'm telling you, Justin, that's just really great stuff there. I just want to unpack a little bit of it. Number one, you started by talking about the importance of partnering, and certainly, your example with WeFunder, that's common in the startup environment. Over the years when we've worked with PE or venture funds, and, on the financial side or the sales side or the ops side, they'll develop relationships with trusted partners. And, to me, what you're describing is you've now become a trusted partner for certain sorts of opportunities, which is really awesome. The other thing, though, that you said that's really important that ties back to the capitalist story is, I had those 4 questions. And one of them is for folks who would invest in you. And when we put together our methodology, that was intentional, because especially at the startup level, as you said, you're speaking to you're not speaking to an end user, let's say, of the tech, right? You're speaking to somebody that you would like to come on board financially, maybe operationally and strategically to help get in front of those end users, right? So it's a very interesting thing that you folks are doing, and mad respect for that. Of course, we've dug into my definition of story, but I always have to ask, in addition to which of those 4 questions you're focused on these days, is, the audience gets my take on storytelling all the time. What's your take? How do you look at storytelling, Justin?
I look at it as an opportunity to have a conversation with your audience, and that audience, every business has a couple of different buckets of audience, of course, regardless of where you are in terms of size or in your history or where you're going to be. You have who you are to the outside world and who your customers and clients are going to be. So prospects, leads. Then you have the bucket of your own internal team, and making sure that you're on the same page so that whenever they go out I always say, you show me great sales, I generally will show you bad marketing. So we go to the sales folks and hear from them first, and because they tend to be a little bit more flamboyant, outgoing, and
smart. Yeah.
And they dramatic sometimes.
Oh, yes.
About shortcomings. And so you take some of that with a grain of salt, but often there are nuggets in there where you can help improve. So that's the next bucket, is internal. And then third are the partnerships and advocates, evangelists, if you will, that believe in the mission. And so for storytelling, what we try to do is be, transparent, create credibility, and also authority. Again, often inside you have leadership who might be, the spokesperson, but truly the work doesn't get done without that shop engineer or the GM or the folks on the floor making it happen. And so we try to extract that out of the people that are actually making it happen, whether we make it public or not. From a perspective of sharing the social, that's really the client's prerogative. But having that information to help us create our own, at this point, it's our own AI within for that client. It helps us create their voice, so that everything that we end up creating comes back to their voice, their words, how they want to be seen. And we try to align all of those things together. So it's probably a long-winded way of saying, for storytelling, it's really about transparency, authority, and credibility, and being able to extract that from the people on the team that matter.
Wow, that's great, Justin. And you uttered a 2-letter word there that I really want to dig into right after the break, and that is AI, which seems to be on the tip of everybody's tongue, maybe in their ear, and certainly somewhere on their laptop and maybe their phone, right? So folks, don't go away. We'll be right back after this short break with Justin Starbird of the Aebli.
This episode is brought to you by Accenture. When your advertising operations fall out of sync, everything else follows. Spotify and Accenture are working together to reinvent the rhythm of ad sales, using automation, analytics, and smarter workflows to simplify campaign delivery and access better data across the business. The result? Less time spent on operations, more time connecting brands with the moments and fandoms that matter most. Learn more at accenture.com/Spotify.
Group. Welcome back, folks, to Storylines Live, the only podcast that explores the power and the meaning of the most important story in business, the one that answers why somebody would buy from you, work for you, invest in you, or partner with you. At Vendilli, we call that your capital S story. In this episode, we're honored to have Justin Starbird of the Aebli Group, also known as TAG, and we're talking about storytelling for startups. And right before the break, we started to talk about how the Aebli Group is working with AI to help its clients in the startup space share better stories. So Justin, could you share with our audience a little bit of, as much as you can, of your secret sauce in terms of how you're doing this?
Yeah, as an industry, it's been, marketing in general has been turned on its head. And generally, you look at the news that, there's a lot of layoffs or what have you. And a lot of it is, some of it was over employment during COVID, but a lot of it is tasks that can be repeatable. And right now with Claude, with OpenAI, with Gemini, anybody can put a prompt in and get something out. And what is so difficult is what used to make us special was, creating the long form content, being able to drive leads or, create ads to drive leads to landing pages to get this great material, whatever, white paper, technical paper, what have you.
Yeah. Downloads of whatever flavor, right? Yeah.
Yeah. And we hung our hat on that for, quite a while. But what we also saw is, even now, is there's a lot of not misinformation, because I think it pulls a lot better and credible information now when you create a prompt. But what comes out is not in the voice of our client.
Yes.
And that part is so difficult to get to, because, there's just, an element of what makes that company special. And it could be, especially we're working with a lot of companies that are engineering heavy.
Yes.
And we'll just say they're not super outgoing engineers.
Oh, that's an understatement there, Justin.
So pulling information from them is not easy. I mean, yeah, maybe a beer or two or six, but otherwise it's pretty tough. So we developed a system. It was actually a long time ago, but it actually, I'm thankful that we had these elements in place, as these opportunities for new technology has made our jobs easier. But we've always used the podcast as a long form content mechanism to make our interactions with clients more efficient. And it's not new. I mean, it's not secret to Tag. It's not a secret, to anybody. Gary Vee has written books about it. You can go back to 2014 and 15 and 16 and him sharing that, hey, we need to be on video or, pull this information out. So we put that in practice then, and started creating these shows, not to be number one on Spotify or iTunes or any of those things. But back to the point about storytelling, we were talking about, this whole show is about, is hearing from the voice of, authority on the problem that you're trying to solve. And now it's just, all that does is it gives us the ability to create our own algorithm for each individual client at scale. Yeah. And that wasn't possible before. So I don't feel as though what we do is anything special, because anybody can copy it and do it. I think what makes us unique and different is, one, some of that experience, but also the strategy that we bring to putting these things together. And so honestly, we've transitioned from just a B2B legacy agency. Yes, we're working with startups, but now we're known for being able to create strategy, but then actually execute on those campaigns, and not just say, oh, you should do this. No, it's, we are going to do this. And it goes back to that question at the very beginning about partnership, where we've developed that trust with our clients, even brand new clients, because they've seen the work that we've done to be able to pull this forward. And because our clients are working so hard, we are able to make the most out of, the least amount of time they're able to give us. Right. And so by doing a 20-30 minute interview, sometimes it comes off. I think we have 19 or 20 shows live right now. Wow. 8 or 10 that are active. Like every week we're doing stuff for clients. But what that does is it gives us that catalog of information that we need to go back and pull. And then, query it just like everybody else, but it's on the client. It's not pulling from everybody else. So we're able to hear the voice. We're able to hear the mannerism. We're able to do that. So that's how we're using it. In addition to all the, hey, you get a lead, great, it's automated. You get an email, alert somebody, and it moves down a funnel. That part is a given too.
Well, that's awesome. And thank you for sharing that. You hit on a few things that I want to highlight for the audience. Number one, AI. And I've been doing a lot of work on this lately. and I'm debuting a new workshop and keynote. It's called PR, the Fuel for AI Search Success. And there's been a lot of research. Muckrack recently came out with a report. They had a research company look at 25 million AI prompts, and it's stunning. Something like 86% of all the results that AI was picking up, the LLMs, or whatever you want to call it, AEO, GEO, whatever, doesn't matter, was coming from what could be considered earned or owned content. Yeah. So what you're describing by creating all this own content in the voice of your clients is just that. You are creating first person, authentic content that's coming from your source. You're not going out on the internet and saying, write me a novel or tell me how to, in the example of the client you gave earlier in the episode, how does a belt replace hydraulic machinery, and try and pass that off as authoritative content. I think that's really critically an important way for people to use AI. And for those of us who are in the marketing realm, what you said about strategy is critical. There's this phrase in AI generally these days, the human in the loop. And we are the human in the loop. So are our clients. It's critical that their strategy and their thinking be in there. But as you pointed out, they need our help. That's kind of what we do. A lot of times there are some similarities between our companies. And one of them is that we also have a deep level of experience in working with manufacturing in B2B. And sometimes our team will, and I don't want to date myself too much here, but it's like the kids in a Charlie Brown cartoon when the adults are talking. It's like, Mr. CEO, explain to me what your company does. And it's like, wah, 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 wah. And that wah, wah, wah is what they need help translating. Yeah. I often say, Justin, that the people who are signing the checks to hire our clients are smart, but they're not as smart about what the clients do as the clients are. And you need to translate that intelligence and that uniqueness so that those checks get signed by whatever the C-suite is, that's the end user there. And I think that's just what you said is really great. And I really wanted to highlight that for the audience.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, that's something that because of our experience in these different spaces, once one of our clients gets a new customer, then one of the other, it is so expensive to get a new customer.
Yes.
Acquiring that first customer, acquiring that 100th or 1,000th customer is still the most expensive part of the business. And so what we also concentrate on is not just driving new leads, but helping our customers, our clients, work with their customers to go deeper and wider. And it's funny that you brought up the 4840 Solutions as my other place. They were a client for a while, but it was funny because they weren't the client initially. During the PE roll up of 19, 20, 21, we started with a company I'd been working with a pallet company out of Ohio.
Okay.
Based out of Cleveland, Ohio. It was a friend of mine I'd met in California as I was starting multiple companies that did not get off the ground. And we hit it off, and I was trying to sell this guy, new lighting at the time. He had bought a warehouse, and I was just trying to sell lighting. It's a great story, longer. I'll tell you later. So we hit it off, but didn't work together right away. And then a couple months later, he's like, "Hey, would you come in? You did a great job of sales. I know I didn't buy it, but our team needs some sales training." And so I came in, we did some training, and they went from 5 million to 15 million in a 2-year span. Then,
wow.
Yeah, it was great. We were retained. I was actually also doing some selling for them. Wow. And I remember 2016, I signed Walgreens, a national contract for them. It was a huge, huge opportunity. It was one of the first of its kind in that space. But what we did was, instead of just helping them recycle pallets, we also went deeper and wider. I share all that because over the course of that next couple of years, again, built the story and built it out to become this little pallet company in Cleveland. Went from that 15 that I truly started with to him selling it for 100. It got rolled up again by Stayed On. Tag stayed on, and I was a W-2 to help, with the improve the value of the company. But I stayed on. 6 months later, that company was rolled up to 250, sold for 750, and then it was rolled up the third time to over $1 billion. And it was just crazy. But why I point all that out is that it was because we had gone from just collecting pallets, buying, selling pallets, to offering services that go deeper and wider that nobody else really in the country was doing at the time, in a way where we were looking at going, to corporate, at Walgreens corporate or Target or Home Depot, and then helping them systematize what they were doing. And that was where the partnership came from. And I can't, don't get me wrong, I was not the only one involved. But that strategy came from the CEO and I actually getting on planes and going to do that. And it was really great because it showed my team at Tag what we should really be teaching our customers. And then we had this great case study that allowed us to do that. And so I think of that, even today, fortunately my friend's retired. He's on the beach somewhere, but,
good for him.
Yeah. 4840 is now the largest pallet company, in the country.
Oh, wow.
And now, it's a whitewood pallet company. And so then it's Brambles or Chep is actually the other one. Then, it's just, such a unique experience to be able to sit here and create the foundation of who we would actually become and be able to point to that when we talk to startups and saying, hey, this is who you could be.
Wow, Justin, that is truly awesome. You've answered for me, actually. Can you share a success story? Have you done that? You also given me a sense of your passion in your work. One thing I probably should ask you, and we did talk about this in our prep for this episode, your name and the name of the agency are very different, but there's a great story behind that. Would you please share with our audience how it came to be named the Aebli Group?
Yeah. So, again, going back to that time in my life where I was trying to start some stuff and it wasn't working out. Initially, I had a business partner and, it didn't see eye to eye. So we parted ways and it wasn't under the best circumstance. I called our clients and asked, hey, do you want to follow me? And fortunately they said yes. And I started a new company. Well, that was the transition to the Aebli Group, but and how we restarted. So that's the company that turns 12. Now, taking a step back after high school, before I took a gap year before going to college, and I was going door to door saving the polar bears for Sierra Club, and trying to do good work. I don't know, it was a passion at the time.
Sure.
So, it was just after 9/11 and I was in Florida and, tourism really had come to a stark stop really quickly. If everybody, dating me as well. And somebody walked in and they had, a little bit older than me, maybe 15 years older than I was at the time, and had been very successful board. And nobody was taking cruises. He had owned a really small cruise company that went out of Miami to the Bahamas, or had interest in. And so, I don't know, we hit it off. I was training him, going door to door, asking for money, right? And memberships for the Sierra Club. So we could go to Congress and save the
polar bears. Yeah.
So, we really hit it off, and he was the one actually encouraged me to go back to school. So I went to school for 4 years in New York at Wagner, and every break, instead of going home to see my parents, every now and again I would, but I'd go to Florida, and, economy had started to pick up, tourism started to pick up. He was working in timeshare, and he brought me down. And so every Christmas break, spring break, and summer break, I'd go to Florida and help there. And after school, I'm like, I don't want to do that. Well, 6 months out of school, didn't have the right job and went to Florida. So his name was Jim, and, really was the one that allowed me to sit at the board table during deals, and he would give me things to do, like, of course I wasn't going to say anything. These are, tens of millions, sometimes $100 million deals. And he'd say, all right, watch this person when I say this, and, just prep, like watch their reaction, take notes on what happened. And so it really gave me the opportunity to read people, and also how to tell a story, to have people follow you.
Yes.
So it was really great. Well, unfortunately, just a little after that, he got sick and ended up passing from cancer.
Oh.
And, I got married a short time after, had 2 kids, and I gave both of my daughters, their middle name is Aebli.
Oh.
And that was Jim's last name.
Mm-hmm.
So when my business partner and I decided to part ways, I was thinking of a new company name. What are we going to call ourselves? Trying to incorporate stuff that meant a lot to me. So that was where the Aebli Group was born, because I paid homage to my first mentor and really close friend. Also, it linked my daughters to the business and gave them, a sense of pride. I mean, they were, at that time, they were only a couple of years old, but, as they've grown up, a sense of pride, to see tag on their jerseys, or, in the field, or those sorts of things. So the Aebli Group really is about, being able to tell a story, but also paying homage to the people that came before me that have given me the opportunity to be here. And so, it means a lot, to me, to be able to share that, because it has meant so much to so many. And, especially here in the community, I was been the rec director for over 10 years, and it's given me the opportunity to give back via the company as well, and give opportunities to my daughters, their friends, and then see them, now going into high school and college and having success. So all of that has meant, a lot to me.
And that, my dear listeners and viewers, is what you call a fantastic origin story. So well done there, Justin. Really appreciate you sharing this. You ticked off a few things that you think are critical to storytelling. In our world, we have 3 pillars. Number 1 is that you have a story rooted in truth that's authentic. 110 out of 100 on that one there, brother. You need to have a fluent storyteller, another 110. And then you need to keep the audience engaged, which I'm sure that we've done that with this episode. And Justin, I can't thank you enough for joining us for this episode. If our audience wants to connect with you, what's the best way to do that?
Yeah. So actually, we just launched our new site as well, aebligroup.com, AEBLI group.com. LinkedIn, it's just / Justin Starbird. Love to connect with folks. And, I'm always open for a conversation. Often I also post where I'm speaking and where opportunities to meet are. So, folks that like to connect, those are the 2 best ways.
That's awesome, Justin. Thank you for sharing that. It's been great, as I said, to have you on this episode. And folks, appreciate you being here as well, whether you're watching or whether you're listening. If you aren't subscribing yet, please do subscribe. We're on all the major platforms. We'd love to have you along for the ride for every episode. And if you've enjoyed this episode, please share it with your friends so that we can continue to help grow this very important storytelling community. Thanks for being here, and we'll see you on the next episode of Storylines Live, the only podcast that explores the power and the meaning of the most important story in business, the one that answers why somebody would buy from you, work for you, invest in you, or partner with you. Your capital S story.
Look what TJ Maxx dragged in.
The Devil Wears Prada 2 is now streaming on Disney Plus and Hulu.
We are digital, we are downloadable, we are streamable.
The fashion event of the year is certified fresh.
Pull yourself together, we have work to do.
Critics say it's smart and witty and the perfect sequel.
That's all.
Get runway ready for The Devil Wears Prada 2 on Disney Plus and Hulu. Rated PG-13.
This podcast is heard along the Marketing Podcast Network. For more great marketing podcasts, visit marketingpodcasts.net.